morning, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman this morning, right here on TV 33 WHPR. And before we continue, I'd like to introduce or have them introduce themselves, my co hosts today.
Good morning, Brenda. My name is Darnell McLaurin. I'm a public servant as well as a union director. Thanks for being with us this morning.
And good morning. I'm Ellis Liddell. I'm an entrepreneur. Since this is a big time to be an entrepreneur, to have your own, Detroit's on a comeback, and entrepreneurs are helping that comeback to take place. I'm also an author. I wrote a book, Wealth Management, Merging Faith with Finance. And I'm working on a second book called Wealth Whispers. Money talks, but wealth whispers. That'll be
Oh,
coming out early next year.
that's class too. Wealth with class
Yes.
whispers. Right. Well, as we do every week on this day in 1989, WTVS airs Black Journal's 20th anniversary special. The hour-long offering chronicles and reflects the influential public affairs show. Hosted by Truly Gallant and produced by James Jackson, it features former hosts Tony Brown, Gil Maddox, Abe Ulmer, Ron Scott, George Martin, and as well as executive producer Juanita Anderson, who works at Wayne State, and I know her. The initial show premiered in 1968, and it was called Colored People's Time. Colored people. I remember, it's funny. Um, the young people today, a lot of them don't know about being colored or Negro. There was a narrative written up about me. Um, I have my hospital records from when I was 18. I was in a car accident and all this stuff. And the description said Brenda Louie, that was my last name, a Negro, 18-year-old Negro. And my daughter read it. She said, Mom, they called you Negro. And that's what we were called.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the norm back in those days.
As a matter of fact, the Negro group, it was the largest landowners of whether we're black, African American, whatever. That group was the largest landowners, was the group that classified themselves as the Negro group.
Really?
Yeah, because land was a thing that was a big push then, get you some land and not making any more. And they got, you go back to your great-grandparents down south, they had hundreds, and some of them had 1,000 acres. And so land became that group's forte.
Wow. Well, you learn something new every day.
Exactly.
Especially something new. Dr. Ben Carson, I think he's crazy, but crazy like a fox because I just don't understand what's happening right now.
You know what? When Herman Cain ran the last time, 999, they like to have somebody out there that's, we'll call it African American, that's going to garner that particular market share. So this time it's Ben Carson, because when you saw him at the debate and he was holding spot number 2 down, and you watched the first debate and they didn't even call on him that much, and you go, how in the world did he get to be number 2? Right?
Right.
So then he became number 2, and now he's actually acting like he's a number 2. He's saying things to create controversy to keep his name on your ballot.
And that's what it seems like is the more controversial you become, the more support you get, the more people throw money at you. So Donald Trump has actually, gone through the roof with his antics, and so now here come Ben Carson with his, and he's rising in the polls.
Oh yeah, listen, he's firmly holding number 3. Some polls have him at number 2, so he's firmly holding his position
And
as
one poll
a
this
main
morning
candidate.
had him at number 4. They've had that Carly Fiorina
Right.
up. I just don't, I think it's the way she says stuff because she says some inaccurate things.
True. A lot of what she said was inaccurate. It's just that I think they gave her number 2 because she took on Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and I think everybody else sidestepped Donald Trump, and she was in his face. Women hurt you too. She put it in his face.
Right.
And I think that she got rewarded for that. Now, the next debate, we'll see what happens. We'll see who steps up. Because, they seem to like to bring somebody to number 2 every time. It was Ben Carson. We didn't see what he did to get there. And now it's her. So let's see who's next.
Right, that was funny. We didn't see what he did. What were you going to
Well,
say?
no, I'm just saying I'm actually looking forward to the next debate. As he said, it's a musical chair. Donald Trump is at the top, and then everybody else is competing for second place. And so it depends on what you do at the particular debate which will tell you where you end up in a poll the next day. We'll tell you who's giving out, who's collecting the most contributions as well.
Well, I watched Meet the Press with Ben Carson on it. Did either of you see his segment?
No, I missed
Portions.
that.
Well, what he said when he was asked.
When he made his controversial
about,
statement?
Yes, a Muslim president. And he said, no, I mean, he meant this. I don't think he did this for controversy. I think this is just something he believes and something he meant. I mean, just like, remember when he said that he believes people turn gay in prison? They go to prison not gay, they come out, they're gay. He believes that. I mean, just there's certain things about him. And I think that was controversial, and I think it was wrong.
Well, you know what? I think that, okay, keep this in mind. We all have our fundamental beliefs.
Yes.
And, he grew up a Seventh-day Adventist, and there's certain things that he just believes
I didn't
in.
know that.
Yes, yes. He turned down a speaking engagement because of his beliefs. So he's a strong, principled person, and I think we all stand on our principles, but keep in mind, our principles are formed based on our exposure. And the more exposed you are, the broader your principles are.
I don't know. I don't know. And now it's funny because Donald Trump, last week he said, I guess he was an okay doctor. Donald Trump is a psychopath. I mean, he said he was an okay doctor. This man separated Siamese twins, okay?
Right. Definitely, he was, best neurosurgeon in the country during his era or his practice, and so that's to be commended. But that doesn't necessarily speak to your common sense. And I think when you look at the political arena now, it's sort of a mockery. There used to be a thing called political correctness. Obviously, Donald Trump has took that term and thrown it out the window, and so now you have other candidates that are stepping up and doing the exact same thing. And I think what you have to do is you still have to be careful because although there's a group of individuals and they have strong supporters, we still have to be leery about what we say. We still have to be responsible for the things that we say, and I think we're teetering on that line.
I don't know. Dr. Ben Carson, I wouldn't know what to say. I don't know how politically correct I would be if I were talking to him. But what goes to what you just said. What does that tell you about the audiences who flock to see these people?
Right. Well, keep this in mind. Everybody likes somebody. Everybody likes somebody. If we were the three candidates for president,
Somebody like me?
oh yeah, someone would love you. They'd want you to quote your poetry to them, and everything would be good. So just bear in mind that everybody has a draw, and people are looking for somebody to follow. Most people aren't leaders. I mean, let's just be real.
Right, that's true.
They're looking for someone to follow. Can you imagine any other time in history that Donald Trump would even be running for president?
No. But I think it gives the people who are for him the courage to kind of say things that wouldn't ordinarily be said.
True.
Yes.
Yes.
It sort of gives them the ability to say the things that they want to say as well. So they'll be driving down the street and they'll be spewing, racial epithets and bigotries because Donald Trump does it. And so I'm not saying everybody is on his bandwagon for that particular reason, but you can see it's coming. If your politicians are able to openly say things, people in the street will do it.
Yeah. One of the challenges that every candidate faced, we had the one gentleman, I don't remember his name, he looked at the camera every time and talked into the camera as if he was already the president.
One of the
and he fell down in the polls deeply. So just bear in mind that you can't act your way to this. Now, did history prepare Donald Trump for this moment? Absolutely. That, You're Fired, all the shows, it prepared he has a whole following, so that following is supporting him. Dr. Ben Carson, again, you open by saying that, he's crazy like a fox. Well, the challenge is there are a lot of people who've read his book. So whether he becomes president or not, he still will get that war chest from all the money that's raised for him to do things the rest of his life. Now, Herman Cain left with a nice war chest, too. A lot of money was still in Herman Cain's pockets when he left. Have you heard anything from Herman Cain?
No.
And same will be true for Ben Carson. When this is over with, it was like you know what, you did something very special for the country. We're going to give you some retirement money above and beyond what you would have normally. You'll have your war chest to say and do whatever you want, have functions, and take your position.
Gee, you know the thing about Donald Trump, I have to bring him back into the mix, is because he spoke in South Carolina a couple of days ago, and he was supposed to be speaking to this black group of black small business owners or something, and the auditorium was not full.
The chamber, yes.
The chamber was not full at all, and he has railed against people who showed the picture, people who wrote this up. He has railed against them. So, you know, I don't know, he seems paranoid. He does. He seems somewhat paranoid about, you know, everybody's against me, they're not showing me. And I honestly think this is going to sound crazy to everybody, but I don't care. I think he's going to drop out eventually.
Hasn't he dropped out of every other race that he announced that he was going to, run for
No,
president?
he never got this far.
Right, but he's never gotten this far because he dropped out.
Yeah,
He's
but
riding the wave right now.
I think he's setting himself up to drop out.
And it's possible. And what you got to understand is, too, he's, his scope of the real issues is very limited. And so that may be it. So right now he's garnering all the support, I believe, because he's tugging at people's heartstrings, and not necessarily in that particular way. He's giving them something to believe in. He's giving them, hope. And so, but the real issues he haven't addressed.
And when do you accept the fact that you're really not presidential material?
Exactly.
At some point you accept the reality. I'm really not presidential material.
Right.
I know, because he's emotional. And I say this every week. He is emotional. And I don't think that your emotions should, look at President Obama. Look at how he's been maligned and everything. And I'm sure he wanted to say, F you,
Several times.
Yes. But he has kept his cool. Oh, my
Yes.
goodness. I have cried for this man. But Donald Trump, and I think what's happening is it's starting to he's going to be plateauing. And he says, black people love me. I have all kinds of black friends. The Chinese love me. Why is that so important?
He wants to be respected. He needs to be respected. He desires to be respected. And that's the challenge, is that you can't desire respect. You can't need respect. You have to earn it.
Right.
It's called integrity.
Yes, you have to earn it. They said yesterday he came out of his building to see the Pope, and he was booed back in. A lot of Hispanics were outside. You know how people were waiting in New York, and this is Fifth Avenue, and they booed Donald Trump twice.
And that's bothering him right now, right?
I know.
He's probably having
he's
therapy
thinking
right
about it,
now.
right, yeah.
He's probably having therapy.
Yeah.
Why did they boo me? I have to say more ignorant stuff.
Yeah, why did they? But it all boils down, and we're going to go away from that, because I do want to talk somewhat about some of the things the Pope said and see what your reactions are to them. But it all boils down to bigotry, a lot of bigotry in this race. First it was about the Hispanics, then the Muslims, and then whatever group, they feel comfortable in spouting out things against. Bigotry?
Yeah, in a
That
country
tells
of
me about
inclusion.
America.
Well, in a country of inclusion, there's no place for it. You've got everybody. Even in Detroit, we have a good sampling of the many people here. But you go to Toronto, you get a greater sampling.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You
So
go to London, you get an
cosmopolitan.
even greater sampling. So you want to live in a diverse society. Everybody does, because everybody has a contribution. Can you imagine America's history if you erase any group that came here? The contributions from every group have helped make America the great country that it is.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah, and we have. Think about it. Some of us come from different lineages and so forth. I told Darnell, when Robin Williams, the comedian, died, his middle name was McLaurin, and his family was from Tennessee.
From Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Yes. Which is from the same town that my people are from.
So honey, no wonder he's...
Robin Williams, my cousin, y'all.
seriously, we are all mixed around.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And I'm sure all of us have heard about the Indian. Everybody has
Right,
everybody has
right.
some Indian in
But
them.
what's important to remember, though, and that was a valid point that you made, but these sentiments aren't new. It
No.
was just always political correctness. Can you imagine if every politician ever just said what they wanted to say without being accountable or politically correct? You know, and so Donald Trump has given light to that, and that's why Ben Carson is doing the things that he's doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else came up and said something crazy.
Well, if you're their manager and that seems to be sensationalizing everything, you're going to coach them. If you know, if you're my campaign manager, and you say, you know what, you got an opportunity to say something that's asinine today, Ellis. However, it's going to have you talked about for the next week, 2 weeks. You're going to rise in the polls, and we're going to raise millions of dollars. Can you just say it?
Right, and he would do it.
And then after you do it and get more contributions like Ben Carson did, you're looking for that next segue to
Right.
get some more money.
And it wouldn't be a stretch because that's how he felt anyway. But he's just being politically
That's
correct.
true.
you
That is
know?
true. Well, the Pope has been in the United States about 3 days now. What do you think of him and what's going on first?
Ellis?
I'll go first on that one. All right, I had the opportunity in 1993 to go to Rome. I visited the Vatican. Back in 1993, I had transitioned through a period where I wasn't poor. I was po. I was so po, I didn't even pay for my ticket to go to Rome. Somebody else bought the ticket
Right.
and the hotel room, the whole 9 yards. And while at the Vatican, I went in one of their prayer rooms, and I fell down on my knees in what many consider the holiest of holiest places. And I prayed that God would give me those things that he had purposed in my life and that life would change for me. And I must tell you, it changed. So like many Catholics, which I'm not, like many Catholics, the fact that the Pope came to America had great significance. For me, it's been over 15, well, it's been longer than that, but it's been 15 years since I got my own business. And I went back to the Vatican when I started my own business, and I went back to that same prayer room and I prayed again because I couldn't even see myself having a business, let alone owning it. And then one of the first trips I did was I rewarded myself by going back to that place that I felt that was a holy place for me. So for those who haven't gone to the Vatican, if you could just imagine the wealthiest looking building you've ever been in
Never seen.
and multiply it by 1,000.
Wow.
And now you have a slight idea of the wealth that the Vatican holds. They've collected wealth from everywhere all over the world, and they've put it in museums in Vatican City, which is their own country. Sitting in the middle of Rome, there's a country called Vatican City
Yes.
that everybody respects. So for the Pope to visit the United States, it meant a lot, but it was a reminder for me from whence I've come and how strong the power of prayer is. So for me, it meant more than for many people who are seeing him and seeing the large crowds and saying, oh, I don't believe he has this following. Oh, I believe it.
Oh, yeah.
You watch TV at Easter Sunday and you see all those people out there, it's amazing. So his visit has meant a lot, but we're going to talk more about his messages, I'm sure.
Right,
But yeah,
yeah.
that kind of paints a picture of who I am and how I relate to the fact that the Pope is in the United States.
Right.
Definitely, it was a great thing for the Pope to come on several planes, and one being the ideology of religion and what it does for people. There's so many Catholics. Catholicism is very large, and so a lot of Americans who believe and trust in the Pope had the ability to see him come to America. Some had the ability to actually go and see him. And I don't know if you saw the parade when he was going through New York yesterday. It was a young woman they pulled out of a little girl that they pulled out of the audience, and they took her out to the car, and the Pope, did the whole thing to her. That was sort of, symbolic for a lot of people, because him touching her was touching the souls of so many people at that particular time. So I think it's a good thing.
Well, I noticed when he sees children, I mean, the smile that gets on his face. And when there was a little black girl in a wheelchair, and he went over to her yesterday, and he spoke to her or her family for a minute. But you look at, I think this Pope, and I've been through a lot of popes in my life because I am Catholic, and when I went to Catholic school also, and when a pope would, Pope Pius the 12th or something was the first pope I remember. But this one, in all the ones, I like John Paul too, but this one is so different. He had on, they were showing his shoes. He had on like tie up black work shoes with a thick sole. This man,
Timberland. No.
they were soft. Timberlands are not soft to me. Anyway, I mean, you think about it. I mean, humility.
Yes.
That's what I see in him, humility. He seems, okay, a lot of popes have worn the velvet slippers and the ornate things, but he kind of shied away from him. And when he got in that Fiat, everybody in these big trucks, and he stuck to the Fiat thing. What do you think it's done for Fiat?
I never put it in that perspective, but yeah, certainly somebody's gonna go purchase one today.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything he does is symbolic. And trust me, it was thought out prior to coming to the U.S. They knew exactly what car he was going to be in. He could have been in one of the United States cars, and it would be headed to the Smithsonian Museum as soon as he finishes his tour here.
Yeah.
So if it's one headed there, it's going to be a Fiat.
Isn't that something?
And they'll be able, Fiat commercials will be able to reflect the Pope, or you'll see something that reflects the fact that he chose to support his country's car. I'm sorry, not his country's car, because remember, Vatican City is a country in itself.
They don't have a car.
But the Italian car. I think everything he did, like he talked about washing the feet of prisoners, going to prisons, washing the feet of prisoners. So he's chosen to go back to a Jesus-style leadership
Right.
and be inclusive. Some of the things that he said to Congress, some of the things that he said, in all his speeches, he's letting people know that you're given this power, but it's what you do with this power. Are you going to use your power and your wealth to change the world, to help those who are lesser than thee, or are you going to use it just to stand out? And he's saying, please look at the wealth the United States has and help the rest of the world.
Help the rest of the world.
And one of the things I found important that he spoke to politicians being public servants, right? You're supposed to take care of everyone. You're supposed to look out for the best interests of everyone.
Wow.
But if you look up the definition of politics, right, it's the activities surrounded by the governance of a country for debates or conflicts between individuals, parties, for power. That definition alone, doesn't coincide with a politician being a public servant. And he also spoke to that they should be working for the people and not for being a slave to the economics and finance.
And that's
But
what we're going to get
right.
into when we talk about him. And I just want to say one more thing to Ellis. Well, I've never been to the Vatican. My son has.
Okay.
But it is the richest. It's really like one of the richest places on earth.
It is,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
On earth. People have no idea.
Right.
More than McDonald's.
I mean, really, really.
No, I'm saying because McDonald's was the largest real estate owner in America.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. They
Think about
always
all
bought
the
a
way
corner lot, high visibility. Yeah, high visibility. But back to your whole thing, and the whole Vatican City, it doesn't represent poverty. The Pope chooses to include those who are lesser than, because everyone wants to help change things. I mean, can you imagine living your entire life and you've had a lot, but you never helped anyone who was lesser than thee?
Yeah, right. And you've never sacrificed something you have to help somebody else.
Exactly.
He talked yesterday in front of Congress, and did you notice John Boehner? Did you, any of you?
He's stepping down at the end of October.
No.
No, he is.
He is?
Yes.
Why?
Don't know why he announced that he's stepping down at the end of October
When did he announce that?
this morning.
Oh, I did. I was here. Wow. I think what happened yesterday was a transformational thing for John Boehner. Well, we know he's a crier, but like when the Pope just opened up, here John Boehner, I saw him. His mouth was quivering and everything, and then he got his hanky out and he just, I mean, he's a devout Catholic. He was so emotional about it. But the Pope talked about the role of law in politics, and it kind of goes to what you're saying. It's supposed to be for the common good, isn't it, to help the people? But don't you think some politicians have gotten away from that?
I think there are people who started carving up America. I mean, when we look at all the various parties, the Tea Party, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, and all the other ones. Remember when, not Ron Paul, what was the one who also dropped out? Ross Perot.
Yes.
Oh, that's
And we keep forgetting about these individuals who've come along. So I think people have gotten away and they started trying to utilize politics as a way to get power and control. And so, yes, those divisive systems have been in place. And, yeah, we need to go back to just being, first, let's look out for the country and its people.
Well, one of the things he said, you are asked to protect by means of the law the image and likeness fashioned by God on every human face. So politicians really are supposed to be looking out for the people. But, a lot of times, even people, let's look locally, they don't think that their politicians are looking out for them. But then you go back to, who did you vote into office?
Right. But we have to understand, though, that's one of the great debates in Detroit about city council members being at large or coming from a district. Me personally, I believe they should come from the district which they represent, because now my plight is your plight. But if you are at large member and you live in a nice neighborhood, you don't understand my street lights are out because yours are on. So if on a very small premise, if we understand that you represent those that elected you, that's the heart of a politician, or it should be. But by definition alone, the word politics says they strive for power.
Right.
So,
right.
Where does that leave us?
I know, but I just don't understand. It's a sense of responsibility. If people, Ellis, Darnell, if somebody asks you, would you do this for me? You said you're going to do it. Would you do that for me? I'm going to vote for you.
Promises made, promises kept was the model. We find a lot of times now that promises made, promises unkept is the new model that people are following. So basically, I'll say whatever I got to say to get you to vote for me, and then after you vote for me, I go, who are you?
Right.
And that's most unfortunate, but I do think that, keep this also in mind, when you look at the Republican candidates, who has natural charisma? Who has the swag that President Obama had when he was running,
No one.
And so if you don't have that natural charisma, you're having to imitate a lot of things. And you're having to look at a camera and talk because you were told by your campaign manager that was the best way to do it, for you to look presidential. No. It has to be natural.
Well, they say that Marco Rubio, because he talked back to Trump, and he knows a lot about foreign policy or something, they're looking at him as perhaps being president, but I don't see it. I don't see it at all. I mean, and then I'm going to say Trump's name one more time. He attacked the guy because he said he sweats like a pig almost, and he drinks a lot of water. Did you see the? I mean, how elementary. You start attacking the way somebody looks or their habits and stuff like that. Okay, but he talked about political and economic injustice. I just always think the poor people don't get the benefit of justice like,
Well, it's different. When you live next door to a judge and your child gets in trouble and you walk next door and knock on the door and say, hey, Your Honor, here's what's happening, buddy.
Make a phone call for me.
And you don't even have to ask. It's done. So it's always been that way. People that their heart goes out to you. But when you're sitting there and you're following the letter of the law, unfortunately, doesn't leave a lot of room for interpretation unless it's personal.
Wow, good point. That's a good point.
And oftentimes, we confuse poor with everything else. Criminalistic, undeserving, welfare recipient. There's some hard-working individuals out there, and I hate to, use a television show, but you look at Good Times, right? Here was a poor family, but the father worked 2 and 3 jobs. The mother did what she had to do. They were poor, but they weren't on welfare. But if JJ or Michael got arrested, they would be treated like the common criminals simply because they didn't have those things that Ellis is talking about. They didn't live next door to the mayor. So sometimes those lines get skewed. Just because I'm poor doesn't make me a bad individual.
Right.
You understand? So,
Right.
but you get treated as such.
Right.
Back to the politicians and the laws of the land and the opportunities that they create. The lady who starred in the movie, I'm sorry, in the TV series last night, How to Get Away with Murder.
Mm-hmm.
I can't,
Viola.
Viola. Yes.
Davis.
And her
Yeah.
speech, her acceptance speech for the
About
Emmy.
opportunities.
Opportunity. You know, I see these white women with their arms outstretched. The only thing separating me from them is this line called opportunity.
Right.
They welcome me in, but I can't get there because I'm not given a chance.
Right.
So the laws are supposed to balance the playing field, to
Exactly.
make it an opportunity for you to, like I said, go to the Vatican, and eventually come back, have the confidence that you can create wealth because you did something that you considered special. For some people, that would have been their pilgrimage. For
Right.
me, it was an opportunity to go on a trip to Europe. You know, but I turned it into more than an opportunity to go to
Coincidentally,
Europe.
while
Exactly.
you were there.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And how did you feel in that room?
I felt that anything I wanted could come true. And I believed that to the point where that the dominoes lined up and they started to fall in place. And my staff can tell you, we sit down and pray now. On Monday, we sat down together and said, okay, guys, we want to accomplish a certain goal this week. So let's put our minds together and focus on this one goal all week long and see what happens. And then we achieved it.
Right.
So I do think a lot of people don't have time to think about positive thinking, positive things. Just to even say focus on one single thing for a whole week is hard for most people, you know, from 1 minute to the next.
Right. With all the distractions.
Yeah, and it is so many things that are pulling at you, pulling from you. So again, back to how I felt in that room is, again, I felt that was a special place. And you're standing in the midst of wealth. So it's real easy to pick one room and say, just let me get my little corner, you know?
Right.
You know, and it just so happened that no one was in there at the moment I went in there. By the time I finished praying, I looked behind me. There were a lot of people behind me, ready to light their candles and do things. But for a moment in time, I had a room to myself in one of what we consider the greatest places to do
You know
it.
what was interesting? Coming up, the Catholic Church is beautiful here in Detroit and a lot of places. Do you know that at 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever, if I wanted to go into church, I could just go in. This is the way Detroit was at one time.
Mm-hmm.
You could just go in, go light a candle, say a prayer, and everything. Churches weren't locked like that. And now you got to lock everything down. But that was just, that gave you so much solace. Let me go into
Right.
church, you know.
I want to say this though to Ellis though. That's a great story, by the way, and I'm hoping somebody watching it today use that as inspiration. You know, to move their life forward. That was a great story. I like that.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, I felt it because I just, that's why I asked you, how did it feel being in there? Did you feel you were alone with God, or
And that room that's the room where the statue of Michelangelo did of Jesus. It's that room.
oh, really?
And so you're looking at that statue, and they've changed it around today. It's 93, it was like that. Today, that statue is a major draw. It's like going to see the Mona Lisa. So it's in a bigger room, so it's not as private as it was back then. And there wasn't long lines in 93. Today,
Oh.
the lines are 3 hours long. So it's just everything has changed. But keep in mind, everybody's going there to get the experience that I just shared with you.
Right.
You
That's
know.
amazing.
That's awesome.
But I want to say
Wait,
this here for those who are
okay.
watching who will never go to Rome. I still think you can get that experience in your own closet at your house. And people talk about your prayer room, if it's your bathroom or if it's the living room, you can still do it. I needed something greater because of where I was mentally to free me. And it just worked itself out that
You
I
had
got the greater experience.
Opportunity.
Right.
Right.
Marcia's on the line. Good morning. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hi there. Yes, I would like to, I can't separate the Catholic Church from its history. The Catholic Church endorsed slavery. The pedophilia that has happened in the Catholic Church. I have a couple of friends who suffered, who were molested as children in the Catholic Church. I think the Catholic Church has lost a lot of money. A lot of Catholic churches throughout the world have lost money due to trying to pay off for what those priests did to children. And I cannot separate that pedophilia from that. I really enjoyed this Pope. He has said a lot of nice things, a lot of progressive things that he is saying that I agree with. And I'm really basically almost an atheist, really, considering war in this world, that we are killing people, selling guns to both sides of the in Syria thing. So I'm not. He put a little hope there. I like the progressive thing, and he did say that we need to stop war. I'm absolutely against war. I'm absolutely. I don't see how you can believe in God, the creators of the earth, and you bomb people out, bomb the country, and sell guns and missiles and tanks and things to both sides. So
Okay.
I think he let, but I cannot separate myself from the Catholic Church history.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just say this here. It's not just the Catholic Church. We can almost go to any religion who supported slavery and the things that she talked about. Any religion has that. But let me just say this here. Even while we were coming up out of slavery, we used the Bible to find freedom.
Right.
It was that Nat Turner used passages from the Bible to determine that he could be free. So we've taken whatever we've been given and mold that into something that we could use as our strength.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, they say that the Catholic religion in the United States is the most members. The ones who used to be Catholic, who are agnosticists or whatever now, are the second largest religious
Right,
group if
right.
there was a group.
Right.
So
right.
a lot of people have been touched by Catholics. And I remember as a little boy, we used to read the pledge on the wall of the CME church, and it even had a connection to the Catholic Church.
Right. He talked about, and he got a big cheer for this, the sanctity of life. And he got, they have this abortion debate that's going on. What did you think of that? He said we must, he says the Golden Rule reminds us of our responsibility to protect and defend human life at every stage.
Right. And as soon as I read that, I knew he was speaking about abortion.
Right.
And so, although I agree with what he said, we need to defend life at every stage and protect. I certainly agree with that. I don't think anybody in their rightful mind would disagree with that. But like Marcy just said, on one end, you got people that's dying and killing themselves and blowing up abortion clinics, but they support the troops. So
Right.
killing is killing.
We have a call. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you all?
Just
And
fine.
you got a very interesting program coming on, and I'm a Catholic also. And my brother went to Rome in the 50s and the 60s because he stayed with the Harlem Globetrotters, and he was one of the first black people that went to the Vatican City. And you know what? People talk about different things about how these Catholics do this, because I was going to a meeting one day, and I try to help everybody in the city of Detroit that I possibly can. And the lady said, you should bring some of your Catholics to the meeting out in the street. I found that was stupid for her to say something like that, because you know what? You have your own religion. I don't knock that. I've been a Catholic all my life, and I was born in 1936. My whole family is Catholic. We went to Sacred Heart over there on the Erskine, Elliott, and
Right.
Rivard.
Right.
That's my church over there that I go to. But see, I love all religions. You believe in what you want to believe in, and I believe in what I want to believe in, but I don't knock it. If you can't help, don't hurt. That's what I've always been told. If you can't help, don't hurt people. Always try to help somebody and try to do things to make things right for the people. I don't see anybody making things right for the people that are not Catholics.
Right.
They talk about you.
You don't
They
ask
talk-
them their religion before you
No,
do
we
something
don't.
for them. And, it's basic. All religions spout the Golden Rule, do unto others.
That's right. But see, a religion is this. There's only one God. There's not 50 gods. There's not 50 different religions. We're all under the same God, but
By
you go
different
to
names.
your own different churches. But I don't think people should get on television and knock the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church, you can go there right now and say you ain't got no food to eat, and I bet you get a basket before you get out of that place in that church.
Right.
You know, I don't knock anybody. I try to help people, and when I go to meetings, I bring stuff. I don't have, that's my money. But I help people that work in the factories, and they was laid off. I took my money and bought chickens and took to the place and fed these people. And I'm a person that's a single mother and raised 4 children. But
Thank
that's
you.
the way I was
Thank
raised. And, you know, knocking people like that, knock the mayor of the city of Detroit, who's doing all this to our children. We don't have schools. I want to say one more thing, and I'm off. We got Northwest Activity Center. They took millions of dollars that belong to Parks and Recreation and build up Northwest Activity Center. I know because I was at the meeting. And they build it up. Now, we don't have a recreation center in my neighborhood on the east side of Detroit. We don't have a recreation center, no place. We don't have no schools. We don't have anything. But yet and still, you're going to talk about the Pope said something that I like. He said something about Martin Luther King. I was so happy I didn't know what to do. He said something about him 3 times. He said something about the president of the United States that most of our black people don't like. It's something wrong with this. It's something very wrong with this.
Absolutely, Ms. Person. Thank you so
But I
much.
want to thank y'all for talking about these people, you know, because somebody needs to talk about it.
Thank you
And
so
thank
much
you
for calling.
taking my call.
You have a great day.
Good day.
Okay, I want to say one more thing, and she kind of hit on it. The fact that he mentioned Martin Luther King a couple of times, several times. I said, you know, it kind of took me aback. But, you know, Martin Luther King was into peace. He was into the poor people. He was into righteousness. And
Yes. You know what? I think probably the only one we didn't recognize that he talked about was Dorothy.
oh, yes. Oh, yeah,
You know.
Dorothy. And we have her right here, Dorothy Day.
Right. Right. Didn't know as much about Dorothy Day. However, the world knows who Martin Luther King is. The world knows who Gandhi is. The world knows who Mother Teresa is. Those
Right.
people who were unselfish, they gave all they had. They gave their life to their cause.
Yes.
So it was really good to hear him talk about it from our perspective, especially.
And then you look, you say, God, he paid attention. You know, he knew about
Right.
all of this. I want to kind of get, because I had a question towards the end about the Lions. Will they win this week? But y'all can think about that. I'm going to go straight to these dispensaries because Marcia called in a few weeks ago talking about these dispensaries. The state of Michigan has voted dispensaries, edible marijuana, and a new tax. Do you think that, and I hear that anybody could get a marijuana card.
Yeah, I heard that. You just got to tell them you got a pain and you got a card.
Yeah. What do
I don't
you
even think
think?
you got to tell them you got to pay. I think you just go out and get a
You
card.
need a card, right?
Yeah,
Give
give me
them
one of them
$100
cards.
and get a
Right.
card?
No, you know, with this medical marijuana or marijuana period, you know, let's put it in perspective. You know, it's a natural leaf, right? And I'm not going to get into the semantics of that. The point I'm making is,
What?
you know, I don't smoke marijuana, okay? But I don't have a problem with what anybody else do. It's illegal. I don't necessarily think it should be. Again, my opinion. What the government is doing or attempting to do right now, though, on top of the 6% sales tax, they want to add an 8% excise tax on it, which would basically keep it illegal because who would go down to the street and buy it with, you know.
What I could buy it from Joe on the corner.
Exactly.
Wait a minute, we have Tom on the line. I'm sure Tom went to Catholic school, so I'm sure he wants us. We're going to back up just a minute. Hi, Tom.
Hello, dear. How are you?
I'm just great, thanks.
Good. Good. Hello to your co-pilots this morning.
Thank you.
Morning,
Thank you.
Tom.
You know what, Brenda? I went to Blessed Sacrament and walked across the little courtyard over to Detroit Cathedral. So that's my history in terms of, you know, Catholicism and the big church, the biggest church in the city, right there on the corner of Belmont and Woodward. But anyway, you know, as far as the Pope goes, I like the Pope. I mean, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to, you know, popes from the past, but this guy, Oh, James
That's
Brown
swagger.
said, talking loud and saying nothing. No, he's talking loud and saying a whole lot. Now, and and where I'm coming from is, I think the church should be brought up into the 21st century, and this is where he's headed. Because, I mean, even, he was talking about the women who've had abortions, that they should be forgiven, and that kind of thing. And, from where I come from, too, is this. I'm one of them kind of like radical Catholics. I think that priests should be allowed to marry, and women should be allowed to be ordained as priests. Because there's nothing in Scripture, and I'm talking about Scripture, not what a man said, that says that a man could not be married and that a woman could not be, ordained as a priest, okay?
Well, I
And
know, like probably I know some priests who did get married.
True.
Oh, yeah, the guy that married my wife and I, he wasn't married, and then he married a nun.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Yeah, we always wanted. No, no.
Yeah, but no, the Pope. I heard, and I'm going to mention her name, and you probably have heard of her, Roberta Jacina. She's got a 15-year-old son, and she asked her son, "Well, what about the Pope?" You know what the boy said? He's cool. Now, I mean, if that don't say a whole lot, a 15-year-old saying that the Pope is cool, you know how they feel in him.
Right,
that kind
right.
Of thing.
Well, thanks for calling in.
Okay,
We
and thanks
just
for
got
taking the call, Glenn. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
So, you were saying an excise.
Right, an 8% excise tax on top of the 6% sales tax. So if you open up a dispensary and you sell these products, that's what that's what the customer is going to have to pay on top of your price. So why would I waste my money going there and paying all this extra over the top, taxes when I can just keep getting it from where I've been getting it?
Let's look at the revenue side of it. So we had alcohol that went through prohibition, and it became legal, and it creates billions of dollars in revenue, annual revenues every year from a government perspective.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Cigarettes.
That's true.
Lottery.
And so when we start talking about
Yeah, it used to be the
medicinal
streets.
products, right, it used to be the streets.
Yeah.
Everything street usually comes
Everything
out,
street,
right?
they gonna be like, give me that.
So the amount of revenue that this marijuana is going to create, because when you take the statistics of how many kids in school are using some form of enhancement to feel better about who they are, the numbers are scary. So you're legalizing products to give them alternatives that are legal versus the illegal products. So eventually, just like in Denver, Colorado, marijuana is going to be something that you can get in a cookie form, all kind of forms. It's going to happen. So as we see this happening, I've got clients who are calling me saying, Mr. Dell, have you picked out the marijuana stocks that are going to make money? And can we start investing in those? Because it looks like I see this coming. Well, what's going to happen is the drug companies are going to ultimately take over this once it gets to be all the dots illegal.
Exactly.
That's who's lobbying for it. It becomes
Yeah,
another
no.
product that they offer.
Exactly.
The drug companies are out of control, but I don't know. I always think about people in the streets, driving under the influence. Not that I'm against it.
So under the influence of marijuana, they're
Yeah.
more mellow. They're driving a little slower.
Yeah.
Right. You'll probably be subject to the same, way that the alcohol is set up. You can purchase it, you can drink it, you can use it, you can do whatever, but you can't
people who
operate.
who want a job, they cannot have that in their system.
Well, once
right.
once all the laws are in place and the pharmaceutical companies take it over, trust me, everything will be in place. It's just like smoking. If you have a job and you're a smoker, you still get to work. It's going to happen with all the drugs.
Marijuana, medically speaking,
Right.
there's individuals that can use it, medically speaking.
Right, right.
Not everybody. But the important question, because I asked this question in my own organization, it doesn't matter if he's ill and he's allowed to smoke medical marijuana. The same effect, though, he's getting it as the next person that isn't using it for a medical reason. Oh. So what's the difference? The only difference is medical marijuana.
Right.
It's weed.
He can
It's
be
weed.
high because
Right,
he's sick.
right.
You can't be high. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Either you can smoke it or you can't. But these are the things that we're going to have to address.
Yep, that's where the legislature's headed.
Because
though.
some people can use it at work because they have a medical condition.
One of my son's investments is he was investing in a cure for Ebola. he was trying to find in stocks, and one of them started rising, then it went back down,
Right,
and then
right. Once that scare stopped, they stopped talking about it. They hadn't talked about Ebola for
Yeah,
a long
Ebola,
time.
yeah.
yeah, but you never know, never know.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting because I wouldn't have thought of that. Okay, because Darnell is here, and we didn't get a chance to talk about everything, except Snoop Dogg is going to have a marijuana lifestyle program. What is the
His website, yeah.
website? Yeah, but anyway, that's more to come. Darnell, I know that you tailgate for the Lions game.
Of course.
And everything. What is happening with the Lions?
You know, I have no idea. You know, but it's the same thing in the past. They look great in the preseason, and then it comes to the opening, regular season, and they go kaput. Now, I like the coach. I like the program he put in place last year. They did really great.
11 games.
Right. This year they started out really great. That first game against San Diego with a 21-3 lead at halftime, there's no way you should have lost that game. So I don't know what happened. And then to turn around and lose to Minnesota, Adrian Peterson has always been a lion killer. So this week is really going to define who they are going to be for the rest of the season. If they can pull this one out, okay. But if they go 0-3, I'm lost.
Yeah, we'll keep
that.
this in mind. Leadership. Which position is considered the leader?
The coach.
No.
Oh, the quarterback.
Yeah, the coach don't get to throw a single pass.
Yeah, that's true.
So at the end of the day, I think that we overweighted Mike Stafford's ability.
Thank you.
And I think at the end of the day, we're going back to his days at the University of Georgia, and he broke the hearts of people in Athens between the hedges so many times.
But
and now he's doing the same thing for the Lions fans.
And I get it. He doesn't look the Tom Brady part, but his stats are phenomenal.
Well, it's easy to have stats. Hey, what stats would Johnson have if he was on another team? If he was on the Patriots, let's use him. If he was on the Patriots team, don't you think his stats would be phenomenal and Brady would still be Brady?
Yeah, but you got I agree, but you got to understand though is the hoodie is in New England. Can't nobody deny the hoodie. The hoodie is the guy. One of the biggest issues I see,
Hurry down now.
and I was in D.C. for this game, and I'm standing in the end zone, and I'm watching, Calvin Johnson run up the sideline, and the other two receivers are like wide open.
Right.
But he's going to Johnson. It's like you making it difficult. I know you're trying to get this guy the ball, you're trying to get his stats up, but we need to get down the field. And one of the things you can notice versus Calvin Johnson versus other receivers, Calvin Johnson is always catching the ball on this side of the defender.
Thank you, getting hit.
Never on the other side.
Thank you.
He's never catching the ball in stride and running in the end zone.
And that's because he's being thrown to.
Well, let's
But that's
let's
play
hope they
calling.
win.
That's the
We gotta
offensive
call it a
coordinator.
day. We got to call it a day. Everybody, thank you guys. We could have talked about this till times
Oh,
got
man, we should
better.
have made the Lions a big town.
I mean, but we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Next week, I have to do 2 Brenda Perryman shows because I got a plethora of guests. But we'll see you in 2 weeks for Table Talk. But we'll be on next week. I'll see you next Friday with both Brenda Perryman shows. And guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ooh.
I think we off there.